Fresh and Buds.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fresh and Buds. I'm your host, Tommy Fresh. You guys can call me Tom. You can call me Fresh. You can call me whatever you want. And I'm joined this week by a bud of mine, all the way on the line from sunny California, Northern California, Mr. Isaac Jessen from the Attack Action Podcast. How you doing, man?
What's up, Tommy Fresh? I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for bringing me on the show.
Yeah, it was a long time coming. I had reached out to you, after I had Taylor on. It seems like a couple of months ago at this point. Got to get him back on, but I wanted to get both the Battle Bros on the podcast. A big fan of your guys' podcast. You guys, some of the OGs in the Fab podcast game. And I guess it's also worth noting that you are also a top 8 finisher of the U.S. Nationals, which was awesome. By the way, congrats.
Thanks. Yep. Podcaster first, Nationals top 8er second. And I told you earlier, I've been really enjoying your podcast lately. So, just know you're appreciated. It's been great.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I think, it's the nice thing about the Flesh and Blood community. I think we all really appreciate each other's content. It doesn't really feel super, what's the word I'm looking for, competitive in that regard. And I think we all do it a little bit differently, and that's cool. And, we all have different things to offer, which is, why I like having you guys on my podcast. So before we get into the main topic, I want to get to know you a little bit better, Isaac, and our listeners to get to know you a bit more. I think we should start at the beginning. Where did Isaac Jessen start playing games or anything of that ilk before Flesh and Blood?
I played Magic maybe in like 6th grade, junior high. I really disliked Pokemon. I don't know why. I was like, Magic all the way. But then I kind of gave that up maybe freshman year of high school. And since then, I credit Taylor Morrow, my co-host, and my brother-in-law Mitch for really being my board game buddies. I got back into games, I don't know, in my earlier mid-20s. I'm 33 now. And we just love having board game night or board game all day into board game night or, whatever. And we always kind of have, I really love cooperative games, but we always have kind of played, some competitive game. We played Star Wars Destiny a bit and Legend of the Five Rings and some others. And then Flesh and Blood came along, and then I really started living. No,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the rest is history. Now, what kind of board games were you into? I mean, I'm a big board gamer myself. Me and my buddies like to play. What were you guys jamming all day on those board game days?
Oh, sure. So, I mean, personally, I'm a big fan of just like, chess type games. That really clicks for me. I also love game like Marvel Champions. It's just like drink beers with your buddies and, punch the bad guy. It's great for cooperative friendship. We really loved playing Gaia Project. That's kind of like a dry, longer, strategic worker placement game. Although I'm not very into worker placement, but that's like a really good one. And lastly, I really like Risk Legacy. It's like Risk, but you play it over 10 or 15 rounds, and the board state changes and crazy story arcs happen with, well, I won't spoil any of it, but it gets really wild. And even if you're not that into Risk, the legacy part is really, really fun. So
That's cool. Yeah, I actually haven't played any. I played the Marvel one for sure, but I'm like you. I don't really enjoy worker placement, but that one you mentioned, Gaia, definitely piques my interest because, if you like it and you don't like worker placement, I'll probably like it. So I'll have to check that one out. Now, before I want to talk a little bit about Flesh and Blood. When you started Flesh and Blood, what was the the initial catalyst for Flesh and Blood for you?
So we'd been playing Legend of the Five Rings, but it was a bit actually kind of like a longer drawn out game, but I think it was a bit too long for Taylor's taste. And we didn't have a core group of players into it. We were just kind of trying it out. And then Taylor, I don't know if it was through Team Covenant or just somewhere else, but he kind of stumbled on Flesh and Blood before Crucible came out. And we played it and we liked it, and a couple of our other buddies were into it. It really helps if everybody loves the game, right? So we just kind of instantly, like I was working a job, but we just like send each other, video chats, like long monologues about like, oh, well, what about this with this hero? As it's, kind of like teasing your brain all day, thinking about these different lines or problems or builds you can make. And I think that that's kind of a good indicator of a game when we were like new and not very good, I'm sure. But the fact that it was that deep already and, that intriguing, I think should have definitely foreshadowed all of this.
Yeah. Now you discover the game, and you guys start playing, and I agree with you. The puzzle thing is great, and that's like one of my favorite things about Flesh and Blood myself. Is every hand is a puzzle that you have to figure out. Every combat chain is a puzzle. But so you fall in love with this game. You guys are talking about it all the time. When did you decide to do the podcast? I mean, have you guys done podcasts before, or was this like, hey, why not? We're talking about it anyway. Well, what happened there?
Yeah, it was pretty good timing, I think, because Taylor, I think, had always wanted to do a podcast, and I was working at the time. I don't think he was, and it was a pandemic, so we had some time on our hands and needed a project, and you can't go out to the bar or what, it's just like a good time for a online project kind of deal, and yeah, we were just talking about it all day anyway, and this was a project that Taylor really wanted to do, so we just kind of went for it. And it turned out, I think, to be really good timing, because we've gotten feedback since then that, like, a lot of people, right when Crucible was released, kind of discovered the game and were pretty psyched on it. But, it's quarantine. It's hard to get games in, hard to learn about it. There's not much content out there. So a lot of our fans, I think, have been able to, kind of grow with us just by, that pretty opportune timing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great time to do it, and I know when I stumbled upon the game, you guys were one of the first few resources that I'd found, and and was happy to,
Cool.
and awesome to kind of connect with you guys, which has been great. I have a good serious question, personal question. What does it take to be a battle bro? How do people get battle bro status? Because I know it's like, that's battle bro Isaac and battle bro Taylor on Twitter. What is that like? Is that like one of those NFT things where it's like a bored ape or?
No, it's just you just have to love playing board games with your buds, and I think you know all about that for sure. It's it's just kind of a little bit of a rib on us, because we kind of have a little bit of bro-ish banter sometimes, just making fun of ourselves, and I think that kind of fits that for us.
Yeah, you guys really do have a great chemistry on your podcast, and at first I couldn't really nail down the chemistry on the Attack Action podcast. Right, I was listening, I was like, what is this vibe I'm listening to? Like, obviously I knew you're friends, but like, what is it? And I've decided that listening to the Attack Action podcast is like walking into a coffee shop, right? And these two friends are sitting there, like, and you look off to the side and they're talking about something, you don't know what. And you kind of like lean in and they're talking about Flesh and Blood. And you're like, wow, I mean, it's relaxing, but you could feel the friendship. It's pretty incredible, man.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, I think it helps us that we're both psyched on the game, and we're both, kind of competitive in our different ways, and we've been best friends forever. So, yeah, certainly didn't have to force any of that. So if, if that's kind of your flavor, it was pretty, you know,
I mean,
pretty easy for us to do.
it is great, man. Now, so you guys discover the game, you start a podcast. When did the competitive aspirations start for you?
So when events started back up, I mean, we played in a couple online skirmishes and stuff, but when Road to Nationals started up and in play or in person play started back up, Taylor was pretty dedicated to um, playtesting and, wanted to perform well in a tournament setting. As did I. I was pretty set on playing Azalea and Levia, though, so I had a little bit different goals. But it's Taylor's, kind of like a sports background, competitive side, which I have as well. But that kind of jump started us into it. I think I would have gotten there in the same way because I was also interested in playing Road to Nats and doing well and performing well, but I don't know if I would have, jump started in the testing, um, or tried quite as hard, quite as fast, without, that kind of structured practice time. I mean, we only practice 1 or 2 days a week, but it definitely helps to have some sort of structure.
Yeah, something to work towards too,
Yeah.
and yeah, I know that that's when I initially got into the game is when I heard about nationals and the callings, and I was like, oh, like I needed that competitive itch scratched as well. So, it seems to have worked out for you. You made it to nationals. It was a last minute decision, correct?
Yeah, it was. And I gotta tell you, I mean, I was pretty fortunate that because I have pretty fierce class loyalty. I like, brutes and rangers, and I've gotten into Kano now too. But I'm pretty dedicated to my classes because I like their playstyle more than some others, but also just because kind of my goal is to be, kind of like master a class or be really good and find all the lines with a certain character. So when Nationals came around, I was pretty fortunate that a Ranger character was well positioned to perform well, and
Yeah,
all my practice, certainly paid off. Like there's a lot of just Ranger lines that if you're comfortable with, you can certainly do better. But that was quite good timing for me.
and I mean, you are the Prince of Precision. Am I correct?
That is correct.
So, I mean, you performed really well with Lexi. Obviously, you top aided, which was incredible, and I was definitely rooting for you. Obviously the way it ended was
Thanks.
daggers, but you took it in stride. It was awesome nonetheless, um, and pretty um, historical in terms of the game, I would say. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. When you were headed to nationals, you posted a picture on Twitter, and you had Beast Within's in your hands. Am I
Yep.
remembering this correctly? Now, I'm a
Yeah.
big Levia player as well. I love Levia. Was was the plan initially to play Levia, or was that kind of like some mind games you were throwing out there?
Well, I really liked the Beast Within Eyes as my eyes was part of it. But I think probably when I took that picture, I may have already been set on Ice Lexi. But in the Vegas calling and then I mean Levi was already powerful then, but then post chain ban, I I wasn't sure if I was going to nationals, but once I started thinking about it, I was definitely set on bringing Levia. I have a lot of reps on that deck. It
Hmm.
plays really well into, some of the top, like it annihilates Prism. It's just really, really, it was really, really good into the meta if I could kind of shore up the Bravo matchup. But unfortunately, I mean, as you know, as a Levia player, it's like once, 2 weeks, 1 week before my nationals. Lightning Briar really hit the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can't fill your Levia deck with defense reactions because it dilutes all your other ratios. So, Briar hitting you for 4 or 7 with 2 hit effects, most of your deck blocks for like 3 or 6 or 9, and it's just was in theory a really terrible matchup. And, Levi has no hit effects either. So,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, it just seemed like that deck was super well positioned, and then its kind of worst nightmare of a matchup manifested, I guess, and like
Yeah.
took over the meta. So I had to make a really quick change.
Yeah, understandably, and it was obviously the right change. Now,
Yeah.
are there any decks you've been playing, building, that you're excited about right now? Obviously, we're on the eve of Everfest coming out, so that's obviously going to change a lot. Um, but is there anything you're looking at? Because we have some Pro Quests coming up in a month or so. Uh, and there is a commitment to some more organized play in 2022.
Yeah, I've been thinking about a few things. It seems like Oldham is one of the big ones to beat now, which is kind of quite tough actually.
Hmm.
So I've been looking at, Reinar or Levia are great. Reinar for the intimidate, Levia for the big combo over the top plays could both play well into Oldham. Unfortunately, Ice Lexi has a pretty hard time into that deck. Um, I've also been just trying to get kind of mostly casual reps on Kano though, because I would like to be a very good Kano player. Um, I don't know how well positioned it is right now, but you know,
It is
I don't know.
interesting.
I'm like a self-competitive person, right? So like my just self goal right now is kind of to, um, in addition to other things, become pretty adept at playing Kano.
Yeah, and it is interesting. It For some reason it depends on the meta. It seems like if people aren't putting no runes in their sideboard, Kano could very easily be the play at a tournament. It's kind of hard to say. He's never going to be like the top tier hero because if he is, people are going to plan for it, right? But
Hmm.
if you're showing up to a tournament that's not expecting to see him, you can win just like Pietro in Italy for the Italian nationals. So, yeah, I mean, Kano's
Totally.
awesome. So,
He
uh,
also has a lot of tools available, right? Like I've had a bunch of, could you just put a bunch of defense reactions and red unmovables and sigils in your deck against Oldhim, and then just pass through your deck once, pitch stacking it perfectly, and then hit him with the big combo afterwards. That might be a little bit too cute or perfect, but you know, uh, his
it's
toolbox is pretty varied. It's just like really hard to pull off any of his strategies. So
well, I'm hoping that he gets a little bit of help. I mean, we have that Ice Wizard,
yeah.
Icelander, so obviously they're going to commit to some kind of wizard printings for Everfest. So, um,
Yeah, what about you? You
I'm still
you back
rocking.
on Levia?
I'm still rocking Levia. I've been rocking this Hexagore list.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
I really like the Hexagore. It's almost more of a defensive Levia. So you kind of plan out your game plan is to really block aggressively for maybe the first 4 turns, and then you kind of flip the switch and you don't let off the gas. You just wait for
Yeah.
that perfect momentum swing, and then you go for it. And I just think the Hexagore is really awesome because the claws are great, right?
Mhm.
Ain't no laws when you're swinging with claws, as they say. But I do like the Blood Rush Bella turns with Hexagore, just two resources for 8 as opposed to 4 resources for 10. Um,
Yeah,
it's
gotcha.
one or the other, and I think the Hexagore is just cooler for Levi anyway. But yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, Levi's just I think one card away. I think from really
Yeah.
being the truth, and and you know as soon as that Briar errata, which actually I hadn't talked about on the podcast yet because of recording schedule.
Oh, nice.
We'll talk about it now. The Briar errata. Well, there was a Briar errata. If you don't know, listeners, where instead of every time you hit, it's the first time you hit, you get the Embodiment of Earth token. And also Plunder Run was banned, and Ball Lightning.
Yeah.
They really dropped the hammer on Briar. How do you feel about that?
So I have a bit of a different take on the banning. As a Lexi player, first of all, I'm pretty bummed that Ball Lightning got banned, kind of as collateral damage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if in their internal testing they just didn't like Ball Lightning in general. And one, I guess, like critique I have is that, pre-chain and pre-Briar, Katsu ran Plunder Run, and it was pretty powerful, but certainly not broken, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Azalea ran Plunder Run. It had its uses, but you need to arsenal it to pull it off. Nobody could just like go wide with 10 cards. So it was, to me, the offender isn't really Plunder Run's power level. It's giving these heroes go again on a stick, pretty much. Because the game kind of went from, pretty balanced mid-rangey play to, like Chain got go again and card advantage and
Mm-hmm.
was definitely broken. And now Briar was a bit less broken. You can definitely beat that deck, but its power level was just quite a bit higher than so many other decks. And to me, it's kind of those hero designs that abuse Plunder Run, not that Plunder Run was like a broken, totally powerful card.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, you can't just ban Chain and Briar, so I guess you have to ban several cards instead, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of my... Oh, and then the Embodiment of Earth thing is kind of in the same... Like, before, if you want to run like a really red line, really aggressive deck, you kind of paid for it in terms of having less defensive ability, like Katsu or whatever has a lot of block
Mm-hmm.
for twos. But Briar kind of broke that tenet of the game of having to weigh a card for its block value and attack value and pitch value and all those things, because that was one of their core tenets early on. And Briar takes that away essentially, right? Like it doesn't matter if a card only blocks for two,
Mm-hmm.
or it doesn't matter if you really go all out and expose yourself, because your opponent is in kind of a no-win condition where you take damage to swing back at Briar, but then they can block with one card and come back at you. And I say that with a caveat, I understand that like Oldhim or Ice can beat Briar and stuff, but it was so much more powerful. Those combinations of things were so much more powerful than so many other decks. Like, Azalea used to be the underdog, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like you could play the game. You could
Yeah.
win sometimes. It was the worst deck, but it was, you could still play. It just kind of felt like Chain and then Briar there for a bit made it so that so many decks out there, you just like, it was kind of a non-interactive experience. You couldn't really play the game anymore. So I'm pretty happy about the adjustment to the balance of the game, but I guess it's too bad it has to come, especially in the form of Ball Lightning, which I would have
Yeah.
liked to use in Lexi still.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a bit of a rant. What's your take?
My take. I mean, hey, listen. This is what podcasts are great for. I think. So in terms of the errata, I'm cool with it. I think that's how it should have been printed from the start. I mean, it just rewarding a hero like as someone who plays Levia,
Hmm.
then looking at a hero that gets rewarded for doing what you want to do anyway. It's just like,
Yeah.
come on, so like it was a bit much. But the Ball Lightning thing, I never enjoyed the design of that card personally.
Hmm.
I don't know if it necessarily needed to be banned, but I'm glad it's gone. I just didn't really love how the replacement effects kind of worked. I mean, I believe, at least in a one draft I did, like runaways wouldn't prevent the extra damage or prevent you from taking 2 damage. And it felt like not fun, but obviously it's a great role player in decks like Lexi, and it is sad to see it go. But I have to imagine Everfest has some stuff up the sleeves for Lightning and other elemental cards. But and Plunder Run, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's kind of, it's paying for the sins of Briar and Chain. I know that like Redline Azalea really enjoyed Red Plunder Run, so
Yeah.
yeah, so it's a little tough, but I wonder. I think it was Flake on Twitter. Shout out to Flake, great guy. He posted kind of like a prediction that Plunder Run or something to the effect of Plunder Run will return as a majestic, so you can only get it in one color. Which would be a lot more balanced. Playing 9 of them, or at least 6, was a little bit much, but but yeah, that's the bans. But to the point I was making before I remembered that it even happened, the natural progression. I like to work hard for my decks. Like as soon as I saw that ban happen, I'm like, all right, well, how do I make Briar work? So
Totally makes it
think,
interesting again.
yeah, no, it's like, oh, like it actually takes some some strategy and like, oh wait, I can play Tome of Harvest in the deck. That seems pretty sweet. So I'm looking at Earthbriar, going into
Nice.
Everfest. I think it's definitely still gonna be strong. So we'll see where she lands. But what are you looking forward to in Everfest? Obviously some probably stuff for Azalea, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think Azalea would need quite a lot. But one thing I would really like is just another tool for Kano against Nullrune 3 or 4,
Mhm.
because he has these really fascinating lines to go wide with the deck, with Chain Lightning and all these interactions. But go tall for Kano kind of involves different variations of Stir,
Mhm.
and it still is a fun and interesting game, but it feels a bit, just if there was one more tool in there for him to, combat the high null rune count. I guess that's what I'm looking for, as well as just weapons or equipment, because as you know, weapons like claws came out in Crucible, and it
Mhm.
introduced an entirely new archetype for Rhinar with just one card.
Yeah.
you know so your equipment plays a huge role in um kind of expanding the versatility of characters. So I'm excited to see what equipment they give us.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, there's a lot to be gained for a lot of heroes in Everfest, especially since they seem to have committed to supporting every hero in some kind of way. So
Hmm.
we will see. It's interesting about the null rune. I've talked about this with some friends about that new Ice Wizard, Icelander. Um,
Oh yeah.
she can play exposed to the elements, which can blow up if you fuse
Oh
it with
yep.
ice. Can blow up null runes, which is kind of neat. So maybe if Kano gets some kind of
Oh, that's pretty cool.
blow up null rune interaction, it'd be pretty awesome. But yeah, man. So yeah, super stoked for Everfest. I know you guys are gonna have a preview card, which I know you guys recorded a video for, which will be fun to watch. We'll all be watching that. Now let's get to the main topic. So for nationals, you played Ice Lexi, but you had to do some drafts as well, and you obviously performed well in those drafts. So I wanted to talk about drafting and just some kind of like basic, rules, tips, and tricks people can take home with them when sitting down and drafting Flesh and Blood, because it is a little bit different from games like Magic the Gathering, but some things are similar. But we kind of sat down and decided on some good stuff to talk about in terms of what might help you when you draft, and we're going to relate it to Tales of Aria because it's the freshest set that you can draft with. And normally I would crack a pack before the main topic, but we're going to crack them after. We're going to apply our knowledge that we're going to talk about and see how that goes. And
Cool.
maybe we'll have time for a second crack a pack too, because I got two in front of me. But the first one is stay open in pack one, but not for too long. You know, it's always good to take equipment, good generics, but you got to pay attention to the good class cards. I would say never be too afraid to pounce on a card that is going to be great. You know, one example of that would be like Red Bramble Spark in Tales of Aria, and you know, also, you know, if you see like lightning is open, make a mental note, because you know you might be giving too much information to the person to your left and right. So, you know, how do you feel when you sit down and you open that first pack?
Yeah, I mean, first pack, I would probably, you know, it's always a piece of equipment or, you know, your red Autumn's Touch or, you know, that kind of deal for sure. But as, you know, as the packs move along, I mean, some people like to take a few powerful cards of each element or, you know, from several characters. I think there's a lot of ways to go about it because of how intricate Arya is, I guess. But my kind of dream scenario is to take maybe like three powerful cards of three out of two different elements. And then, you know, if I'm taking lightning and ice and then Lexi doesn't work out for me, well, then at least I have like three powerful ice cards or three powerful earth cards to play in Briar or Oldhim, you know? So I would totally agree also. Like if you're past, you know, a red turn timber or, you know, whatever, some powerful card, you know, you get 15 misses, right? And, so you're really not married to that card, and it's fine if you know take that and then you switch to your seat for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, it's. Are there any, you know, for example, in Tales of Aria, are there any common class cards you would consider taking first, assuming like the equipment is weak, like I guess maybe like Runaways would be one of the weaker equipment to open.
Um, yeah, so I would definitely take Terra Sunder.
Terrace. Oh,
Or sorry,
yeah.
were you asking for class cards or
Yeah,
equipment?
class cards, or like, I mean, common class cards, or even like rare, not so much majestic, because I think there's
Oh,
quite a few
sure.
majestics I would take first,
Yeah,
but
that's fair.
yeah.
Yeah, Red Rites of Lightning, pack one, pick one. That card is busted in draft and so good.
Okay, cool.
Um, it's
Are,
just nut because it's fused. It has Go Again. I think it does 4 and an Arcane, and then has Go Again into Rosetta, um, which the auto Go Again cards are really good, and then that card's really good on top of that. So,
yeah.
yeah, definitely that.
How do you feel? Because I know early on, people were pack one, pick oneing Red Bramble Spark a lot. Is that something
Mhm.
you look at and you're like, this is worth taking?
No, I think Briar is my favorite character to play in draft, actually.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it's open, but I don't take red bramble sparks.
Okay.
Maybe I'm a little bit nervous to take that pack one pick one because Briar is such a popular character. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's shifted a bit now to Oldhim's pretty popular.
Yeah.
So maybe that's not quite as true anymore, but it just feels like it could be a really wasted pick. And I mean, it's a very good card, but it's not, you know, it's not an attack with go again. It could be for pump for 1 or 4, but you know,
Yeah.
I don't know. Very, it's really good, but it's
Yeah.
just not pack one, pick one for me.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't think. Yeah, I don't know what I would take. I typically don't draft Lexi. I do like to play Oldhim quite a bit, but even with Oldhim, most of the cards I want to pack one, pick one are just blue Earth cards anyway. So it's
Yeah.
it doesn't really apply. But you know, obviously with other sets, it's a little bit different. We have the Farewell to Wraith draft coming up in 2 weeks. which is a whole different ballgame. But we're going to stick to Tales of Aria. So the next thing you should know really when you're drafting is know the role of each card in your deck. If you are picking Heaven's Claw, are you playing Lexi or Briar? Some cards are good in every deck, i.e. Lightning Surge Red.
Mm-hmm.
So,
or like Autumn's Touch Red.
oh yeah,
Even if you're on Briar, that's still just fine to play.
yeah, absolutely. Now, do you take Autumn's Touch Red? Or do you take Evergreen Red over Autumn's Touch Red? Right? It's just the same card with upside.
Yeah, I would take Evergreen Red. Particularly because of, again, the emergence of like Fatigue Oldhim is maybe the most popular deck played now, so that could be a really useful tool in that sense. I think the Heaven's Claw is a good example in this situation, just because it's so much better in Lexi, right? You flip it up and you play it with Go Again, and then you can play an arrow all for a blue, right? But in Briar, it's it's also a solid 1 for 5, but it's not super impactful on its own. It's better with Go Again, which is a bit more difficult. So that's like a really good talent card, but performs very differently in different decks. And I kind of like that about Arya. There's a lot of cards that have very different roles, even though they're just kind of a generic card, but just depending on what you're doing, can do very different things.
Yeah, they can slot in if you need them to, right? You're never going to be upset to play the Heaven's Claws in Briar, but you want the Go Again mostly in Lexi, but and I guess you can see that in cards like even Sotomara Blue, right? It's mostly you're going to be pitching that to Earth React in Oldhim, but I don't think Briar's ever really going to want to play that unless they really need blues. But yeah, I mean that's a great point to make though, is recognizing, especially in a set like Tales, but even in other sets where maybe it's not going to be talent cards, it's going to be generics. Recognizing which deck or which hero does this generic really play well with. I guess for example, in I would say Welcome to Wraith, right? The Razor Reflex, good in just right. I mean, it's good in Katsu and Dorinthia. So it's but you could technically play it in the other two heroes. But
yeah,
I don't know if you'd want to, but
right. Depends on how many generics you have, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So now the next thing I think is something that I personally struggle with. I think is checking in on your pitch distribution, like in between your packs. Like after you finish the first pack, take a look, see where you're at. You don't want to be in a point where all of a sudden you're all blues and you don't have any powerful red cards, or the other way around. And you have to recognize, the hero that you're drafting, what that hero wants in terms of pitch distribution. For example, Oldhim really loves the blues, and red arrows are super important for Lexi. Are there any kind of like rules of thumb that you have when looking at pitch distribution, just in general for drafting?
Yeah, so I mean, you definitely have to be aware of this in every set or every game of limited, and it kind of plays out a little bit differently. But with so in Tales, and this is a really good point you brought up, because I kind of forgot I thought about this, because in one of my nationals drafts I was like really adamantly picking blues because I was playing Oldhim, but it plays out a bit like if you're playing as Lexi, you're just going to get wheeled blue arrows. So you really don't have to worry about your cost curve. I mean, you can still look at your cards, and I look at more like pumps versus red arrows, that kind of ratio.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe like lightning surges and heaven's claws versus arrow, like that kind of deal. And then in Briar, it's like maybe if you're Earth Briar, you need a bit more, but it's like usually yellows will get you by, and you're probably just gonna naturally have enough resources in your deck most of the time. I think it's usually Oldhim that, because in the draft I was thinking of, I started having to pass, like I don't need another red mulch, right? Or something that's like pretty good, but you can only have so many in your deck. So I have to choose a blue Oldhim card or a blue Earth card over, red Snow Wonder, these cards that are really impactful and really good. It's just like I have enough. I only have 9 blues and we're on pack 3. I need to pick some blues. So um
I've been on the other
that's
side
definitely
of that.
something to be aware of for
Yeah.
sure.
I've been on the other side of that coin where in Oldham, like, I've taken so many blues and I didn't even think about how many I've taken, and then I get to that last pack and I'm like, holy smokes, I'm more than good on blues. I need to get some cards that can kill them.
Totally.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think it's a kind of a good rule of thumb. Just knowing what your hero is really going to need, and making sure you have the support for it in terms of resources. So.
Yeah, and I mean, you're talking about Welcome to Wraith also, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
Katsu likes 0 cost blue pitch cards and
Yeah.
probably needs like, quite a bit of them. Bravo needs a lot of blues, but then like, Dorinthia only needs a blue a hand, maybe a yellow a hand. I mean, a blue a hand's ideal, but
Yeah.
compared to Bravo, you just need less. So, I think especially the Guardians or just more expensive archetypes, will that'll be higher up on your priority list as you're picking up. That's one of my favorite parts is when because I don't have like a perfect memory for this. So when you pick up your cards after 2 packs of drafting and you look at all your ratios and you're like, okay, I only have, maybe 7 good picks left to like try to up these ratios before I
Yeah.
start getting the bottoms of the packs.
Oh man.
Really hope this works out here.
I'm the same way with podcasts. Sometimes I record a whole podcast, edit it, and then put it out and be like, what did I talk about? I'm just like, it's like, it's just in and out. And then, I look at that. I look at I'm like writing the description for the podcast and be like, oh man, I should go back and look at my notes. But, it's the same way with drafting for sure. So, something that you had mentioned, when we were talking about this was kind of drafting a strategy, not individual cards. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah. So I mean, your deck kind of needs a cohesive strategy, right? Like if you have a bunch of good cards in Briar, but you're kind of all over the place in your talent and what you're trying to do, like it can kind of be a little bit clunky or at least not optimized. So your strategy doesn't have to be that involved, and it can, as the draft goes on and you kind of see what's open, you can kind of like adapt. Because I've been in a situation where, I think I'm going for this, and then I'm like, well, that's not working out. Okay, I think I'm going for that, then that doesn't and I'm like, okay, I got to just really dial it back here. And okay, I have a good ratio of attacks and non-attack. I'm just going to try to give attacks go again and lean into Rosetta as best I can, because this draft is not going well. So it can be a bit fluid, but aggressive Oldhim or a control Oldhim are quite a lot different, right?
Yeah.
And it really, like Ice Lexi, you really need to fuse those arrows. Otherwise, you're just like not doing as much damage as Lightning Lexi. So I think more important than having like a Channel Mount Heroic in your deck, you need to have a deck that is trying to do a certain strategy. Sorry if that was a little bit vague, but
No, that's
keeping your
perfect.
goal in mind as you're looking at your cards.
Yeah. You wanna make sure you are picking cards that will not just on power level, but in synergy. And
Hmm.
yeah, you want to make sure that you just don't want to pile, right? You don't want to pile when you sit down to play your matches. So
Hmm.
um,
And it doesn't have to be pretty. Like one of my nationals drafts was my Lexi deck was like all over the place talent wise, but I
mhm.
had just prioritized pumps and Lexi was open and I got red arrows and like more pumps than I could play. So it's really, really good. And I didn't fuse the whole like any of my games, or
Oh
maybe I
wow,
did once, but but it was just like heavy pumps, red arrows. I'm just gonna kill you before you can kill me, you know?
yeah.
Um, so it can be kind of anything. It's just you got to know what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess something for like Oldham, right? Yeah, when sometimes you get laser focus on those blues, but sometimes you want to make sure that that blue costs three or more for your hammer to pump it to
Yeah.
four and create that break point. But
Hmm.
yeah. So another tip that I always like, especially was the biggest hurdle for me, or not hurdle, but the first obstacle I crossed in drafting, because Tales of Ari was the first set I drafted. So know your win cons and make sure you
Hmm.
draft them. Do you have threatening arrows to dominate with Lexi? Is that your plan to win? Or are you going wide? Can you threaten enough arcane with your Briar cards and your Rosetta Thorn to finish out with Briar? And my favorite way to win with Oldham was just pumping a thump and getting in there for the win. You know,
Yep.
you got to make sure that you know what's going to win you the game, because and anybody who's played Flesh and Blood knows sometimes it gets down to like, God, I really just need to push through that extra damage, and you just and you're like thinking about your whole deck, and you're like, oh no, I don't think I have anything. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think Cracker Jack's Thump is a great example because it can win you the game with the dominate, or it can win you the game by grabbing tempo that turn,
yep.
and then you can win down the line. And yeah, just keeping that in mind is, and you don't have to have it all memorized, but if you have two or three red thumps in your deck and you're not set up for it, great. I can block with the first one this turn and preserve my life. But if you only have one thump in your deck and you only have a couple different ways to like take tempo or beat your opponent, then
Hmm.
you're like, maybe I gotta take two or three more damage and arsenal or pitch this thump, to preserve it in my deck. Because yeah, I mean, ideally your deck is just like mean and has a lot of threats, but sometimes you only have, two or three or four different like power plays that really kind of win you the day. So um
Yeah.
don't block with that thump if it's your only one.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I mean, yeah. Sometimes it just it doesn't work out, and you have like two cracked baubles in your deck, and you're like, oh
Hmm.
no. But um, so let's. I want you to talk about this next one. This one's pretty important to me as well. You send it in. Having fun.
Yep. um so a lot of times when you play draft, you're like at an armory night or some sort of tournament. So I don't know if you feel pressure to do well, but one of the funnest parts of draft for me is like playing different characters and exploring different archetypes, like um Arsenal Pass pitched James White's Yellow Bellows, which I, had not thought of. There's a lot of different archetypes that you could aggro ice old him. You can,
Hmm.
there's different ways to win the game or play the game, or like explore these characters. And if you're just drafting with your buddies and it's not for like testing, or you need to find the best line, I do have a lot of fun. And maybe that's just me, maybe that's not your priority, but I really enjoy like, oh, what it can I what if I can do this with Briar or whatever. And feeling that out. I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, it is a game. It's, we're here to have
Yeah,
fun. But wait,
what we're here for.
yeah, can you explain Yellow Bellows for me?
Oh, so I think Brendan pitched this, but it's so you just pick all of the yellow cards you can, and all of the sixers you can, and all of the primeval bellows you can, and just play brute into romping club.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, hey, that's fun.
Totally. And it's the thing, I mean, it might work because none of those cards are particularly high priority. I mean, maybe red primeval bellow, but they're like kind of hard to make work just in a normal deck. But if all you're doing is it's just all yellows and sixers and
Yeah.
primeval, then it probably works every turn.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, I mean, I'll have to try that. I think I'm doing Welcome to Wraith again next week. But piggybacking off of this, I think is important to sometimes you open the majestic, like the really fun one, the cool one, and it's not the right pick. It might not be the right pick, but sometimes it's fun to take it and try to make it work because it's a flashy card. Why not? It's that's most of the fun of cracking these packs anyway, right? Hey, what am I going to open? So you open the cool majestic. It's like, all right, let's settle in and like go for it. I'm trying to think of a fun majestic that is not first pickable in Tails, but
oh, I've got a million tome of harvest in sealed is like the card I get every time, and it's not that good. I mean, it's fine, but
yeah.
for a majestic, you're like, meh. But that card kind of has a special place in my heart because it's just like accompanied me in every deck and every sealed game I've played for some reason. And yeah, I enjoy playing it because of that.
I do love that card, and it is amazing. But yeah, so all right, so those are just kind of some tips and tricks for drafting, and we're gonna crack a pack now, and we're just gonna we'll talk through it. We won't go too in depth on each card, but we'll talk a little bit.
All right.
So I should have did it in the mic, but I forgot to.
But I heard it a little bit. Maybe they heard it.
Well, first out of the pack, we're looking at a blue Entwine Lightning. How do you like that? Looking at that first.
Don't like it.
No, me neither.
Nah. I mean, if you need blues, but yeah, one of the it's not a talent card, so it doesn't help you there either.
It certainly does not. Now, we have red Polar Blast.
Oh, nice. I prefer the blues because they both just strip a card.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I really enjoy about Flesh and Blood is making your opponents make tough decisions. So I kind of like this card for that. And it replaces itself, which I think is pretty good, actually. This isn't like pack one, pick one, but I do kind of like blue Polar Blast at least. And, maybe the red's fine.
Yeah. I think, it's fun. Especially, I mean, it's good in Lexi too, give them that Frostbite and then replace it. It's a pretty good line. And sometimes they'll just take the Dominate and then you can just pump with your Shiver. So you're getting best of both worlds.
Totally. Or if they pay for it, it's stripped a card. And you're like, all right, that's fine too.
Autumn's Touch. Yellow. Sorry. 3 for 6.
Yeah, that's fine. Again, not a pack one, pick one, I think, but yellow's just not that great. But blocks is earth. It swings for 6 still. There's a lot of I found in Tails, there's a lot of value in these kind of big swings because if say your opponent has 1 life and you swing at them for 6, a lot of the cards don't block or block for 2. So whereas in some formats, swinging for 6 is just stripping 2 cards, but in Tails, it's like actually asking a bigger question there.
Yeah.
So not the worst.
No, definitely not. Yellow Shock Striker. I'm not too high on this card.
That attacks for 4, huh?
Yeah, attacks for 4 has that instant. You can pay 2 to, if it hits, deal 1 damage.
Yeah, it's okay. In Lexi, it has Go Again. If you play it with a blue, then it's kind of for 5 if they let it hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not the worst. Good fuse
Yeah.
um, target. Red Earthlore Surge, big boy, comes in hits
Oh
for
yeah.
5.
I think we'll agree on that one.
Yeah, I mean that one's a beater. Is that
Yep.
the pick so far here?
Yeah, I think so. Earthlore Surge is just so powerful in that it pumps any card. So like also for a blue, you can play it and pump a 1-cost attack,
Oh
which is
yeah,
pretty nuts, you
pretty
know.
wild, especially in
Yeah.
good old Briar. Our first rare, Weave Lightning Red. This is also a
Ooh,
good
that's
card.
pretty good.
Yeah, I think I like that one too. I see the next one. I think that's what we're going to be picking. But what are your thoughts on Weave Lightning Red?
Uh yeah, also very good. This is a good pack.
Yeah, no,
Um
it's a tough
I
one.
mean, Lexi wants pumps and Briar wants that Go Again.
Yeah,
So, I think that card's really good actually.
yeah, very versatile. Well, I mean this one's gonna make I think the pick a little easy. We got Terra Sunder.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I mean I'm on Terra Sunder all day. Is there any
Yeah,
reason you wouldn't take Terra Sunder here?
no, that card's just mean. That's what we were talking. It's like one of the things, like one of those threats in your deck, right? It's one of the 2 or 3 or 4 things that get you tempo or win the game or whatever.
Yeah, just absolutely brutal. One of my favorite cards in the
Yeah,
game when I'm playing it. When my opponent, not
totally.
so much.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think we're taking that because we also don't want it played against us.
that's true. That is a great point. Hey, listen, do you want to play against this Terra Sunder?
Totally. I'm not much of a hate drafter, but
I think
that one will.
yeah. I mean, if the ceiling is getting to play it and the floor is not having to play against it, I think we're in a pretty good
Yeah,
spot.
totally.
We have a band card here, foil
Oh,
blue ball lightning.
hmm.
Not where I'm at initially. Um,
Yeah, I'd take it on the wheel maybe in this pack if it
mhm.
made it back around. But yeah, it doesn't. I think ball lightning is really, really good, but I don't hold it quite as highly as some people do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the red obviously, hits hard,
Yeah.
but yeah. Equipment is Coat of Frost.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's another nice one. It's a free frostbite token helps you get the tempo back.
Hmm.
Not where we're at though, obviously, but um,
Yeah, I like Code of Frost because if you go first, you can pop it turn 1 to kind of give yourself a little bit more even playing field
true.
because you just start on the defensive, so it's like that's kind of a nice play, or save it for later on down the line, but kind of sniff out your opponents trying to hold their cards and have a good turn. You can pop that. I actually kind of like that equipment, but I don't think it beats out Terra Sunder or even maybe Earthlore Surge. I'm not.
Yeah, or I mean, Weave Lightning too. I mean,
Yeah, totally.
this is a strong pack. I mean,
I know it's smart to take equipment, but I don't think so. Not quite there.
no, no. We got Yellow Entangle. Not high on that this
Yeah.
early. Obviously, we'll
No.
play it, but we do have Red Chilling Ice Vein. This is
Oh, nice.
it's a good card to solidify yourself in Lexi.
Yeah. Um, my take on Lexi kind of is like she's super powerful if you're one of the only
Mm-hmm.
1 or 2 players at the table, but I'm gonna wait to see if she's open,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm not gonna take red arrows and then be one of 3 or 4 Lexis right out
Yeah.
of the gates, because then she's like really bad. So, if that comes back around along with a bunch of other Lexi cards, great. But yeah, not picking it.
This is a card I think I would want on the wheel if we took Terra Sunder is Red Thump.
Oh, nice.
Depending on where the pack was at. Obviously, we talked about Thump. Pumping that Thump is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yellow Stir the Wildwood. This is one
Um,
potentially comes in for 8. too?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, it's a decent card in Earthbriar for sure, or a good
Mm-hmm.
card, but we're not there yet.
No.
So, yeah.
Yellow Bramble Spark, which we had talked about, but
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I'll pass as well.
we're gonna pass. And then Yellow Frazzle. So I think Terra Sunder's the winner in that one.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
put those in the giveaway pile.
But yeah, I would take, if there was no Terra Sunder, I'd take the Weave Lightning or Earthlore Surge.
Yeah,
I think those are hands down the best cards in there.
definitely. And I think yeah. I mean, I think I'm definitely Weave Lightning over Earthlore Swords by a little bit. Um,
Yeah,
just because it seems a little more versatile in terms of whether you're in Lexi or Briar. But obviously, nothing wrong with Earthlore Surge at all.
yeah, definitely.
Do you want to do another pack?
It's your pod.
Hey man, I mean, listen, I respect your time, but if
Is it sitting there talking to you?
yeah, it's looking at me. I mean, the Terra Sunder is gonna be hard to, I mean,
Oh yeah.
hard to beat that, but maybe it'll be presented with a little more difficult decision here.
This is
Um,
on theme for your draft episode.
oh yeah, definitely.
Open packs, so let's
hmm
do it.
Yellow Icy Encounter is the first card out of the pack. Um, I kind of like Icy Encounter. Not up front though, not the yellow one.
Yeah, no. I actually kind of like the blue because it still has a breakpoint hit effect, which is
hmm
kind of nice. But, you know, not not great, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's a blue as well.
Blue So Tomorrow.
Oh, what do you
Um,
think about that?
I mean, I like it in Oldham, and that's just about it. I don't take it early, unless I'm
Yeah,
like I'm really playing it safe and there's nothing really else speaking to me. Um,
right.
but I don't hate it. That's for sure. But there's better blues to take. I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
We do have Entwine Earth Red. This is the 2 for 6. If it's fused, gets +2.
I might we'll see what else is in the pack, but I might grab that first cuz 2 for 8 is pretty good.
Yeah, it's a beater. That is a beater.
Yeah.
Yellow Electrify. Um, Another one of those replace cards from Arsenal. How do you feel about Electrify?
Uh, those well, the cards that replace themselves are tough because when you're blocking, you can't like weigh your next turn,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you don't know what you're going to draw, which I find makes it a little bit hard. But uh, I think Electrify is a bit better in limited because you get the dominate off Shiver to ensure that damage.
Yeah, yeah.
And in Briar, it's a non-attack action and it replaces itself, so maybe it ups your odds of getting a embodiment of lightning going for it. I think
Helps.
that card's pretty decent.
Yeah, helps turn on Thorn too.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
uh, yeah, decent. I don't think that's where we're at though. Yellow Mulch, which I don't know what these packs. This is a. I don't know
yeah,
why that card was there before the rares, but I like Mulch,
yeah,
but not the yellow one and not this early. I like the
yeah.
blue one to be honest. It's good to turn on the hammer.
Yeah, yellows are tough in Oldham.
Yeah, yeah. Just never makes sense. Um, First rare, Lightning Press, blue.
Uh, no.
Yeah, no, no, not worth the card. Not worth the
I
card.
mean, Lightning Press is great, but in blue, it doesn't block, right? And the upside is just one surprise damage, which, you know,
Yeah.
usually not what you're looking for.
Next rare is Red Snapshot. The 0 cost 4 attack arrow action. And if it was fused with lightning, you may activate abilities of bows you control an additional time this turn.
Yeah, I'm not. I think this is one of the worst arrows because this arrow is like made for Death Dealer, because if
Mm-hmm.
you activate it as an action, it has go again and refreshes your action point. But in limited, it basically does nothing because Shiver is an instant. So if you load this arrow and fire it, you don't then get go again by loading Shiver again.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's probably the worst of the arrows. I think they just made it for constructed, and it,
Yeah. Yeah.
still an arrow.
Foil's blue lightning surge.
Hmm.
How do you like that? Play Marshall
I think
against
that
go again.
Yeah, I think that card's okay actually. Um, I mean, I'd pick it on the wheel maybe.
Yeah.
It's not that good, but it's like a blue. It fuses, and I mean it's free for 2 go again, which is kind of not the worst. Especially in Briar where you want an action with go again to get to Rosetta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not endorsing this card. It's just like as
Yeah.
far as blues go, it kind of does a lot maybe.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I think on the wheel, maybe if that's where you want to be,
Yeah.
definitely a safe pick. Now we have equipment. Uh, Before I say this equipment, what would you say is the best common equipment you can open in Tales of Aria?
So I don't play Fatigue Oldhim much.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna say Mark of Lightning or maybe Cracker Jacks. I'm gonna say Mark of Lightning.
Okay. Well, this is deep blue, so
Ooh,
I do
yeah.
like the deep
Sorry,
blue.
sorry, I forgot about Deep Blue. I think Deep Blue is the best by
Yeah,
far.
yeah. I think that's where we're at right now. I think.
You just never see any Deep Blues unless you open it, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a pretty rare card.
Yeah. Great card. I mean, just is turning anything into a blue pitch is just great. So,
But in such a fast format, like fixing your offhand is
so
just
important.
nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
To the class cards, we got yellow chilling ice vein.
It's all right.
Yeah, just okay. Um, red stir the wildwood. Pretty
Hmm.
solid card in Earthbriar.
Yeah, definitely.
Hit for
I'd say
9.
if you're in Earthbriar, great,
Yeah.
very good. Yeah.
How do you feel? So I'm gonna do these two together. We have a red Strength of Sequoia and we have a yellow Emerging Avalanche. How do you feel about those cards in general for Oldham?
I think probably the red Strength of Sequoia is the better card.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a bit, just a little bit jaded from. I did most of my limited play like before and around nationals.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I tend to, Earth always just seemed to be super popular, so I've generally stayed away from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've probably played like Ice Oldhim more and have played the Avalanche more. But if Earth is open, I think Strength the Sequoia is great. Like especially if you're running mulches and thumps and all that,
Yeah. Yeah.
could
And
really help you out.
in the end, I mean, it still blocks for 3, which is great. So,
Yeah,
in
exactly.
Oldham,
Can't hurt.
yeah. We have red Frazzle. 1 for 5, lightning fusion. If an attack would deal damage this turn, instead it deals that much damage plus 1. Pretty solid.
Yeah, I
arrow.
mean that's a pretty good arrow. If Lexi's open, I would be happy to grab that.
Absolutely.
Because the Shiver dominate. It's just 1 for 6 or 2 for 6 really.
Mm-hmm.
But just another red arrow you can pump, and Lexi can present quite a lot of dominated damage.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I mean, hey, if you can, you get that go again going, all of a sudden it's every attack that turn, right?
Yeah, I mean, if so in constructed with Voltaire, you can give it go again. So you fire that first and then play more attacks afterwards, and it's really good.
Oh yeah.
But with Shiver and limited, it's almost guaranteed to be the last thing you play, so it only pumps itself. But
Mm-hmm. And
but
then
still decent.
yeah, and then the last card, Blue Bramble Spark.
What do you think about that?
I mean, it's all right. It's
Yeah.
not where I want to be. I mean, I remember, I had never been first picking Bramble Sparks. I remember when people were saying that it was pack one, pick one. Um, I think people were just so used to sealed um,
Hmm.
off the bat, and it just took. And that's the beautiful thing about Flesh and Blood draft. And kind of to sum this all up, is the beautiful thing about it is, unlike games like Magic and some other games that have drafting, you can't really draft this online, right? So
Right.
Flesh and Blood draft self corrects at a much slower rate rather than
Hmm.
the next day, which is
Yeah.
kind of cool. Because I remember when Namvo started drafting that kind of like fatigue Oldham, right? You didn't really
Hmm.
see a lot of that prior to that, and then all of a sudden you saw a ton of it, and it evened it out because I felt like prior to that people were just like, oh, Briar, 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 Briar. So
Yeah. People thought Briar was overpowered and limited and
hmm
yada yada, and now it's like Oldhim is probably the most powerful unless there's 3 or 4 Oldhims at the table and it gets diluted enough.
hmm
Um, yeah, I think Bramble Spark is a little bit a relic of that Briar popularity. It does kind of have a little bit of a silver lining in that it's a free non-attack action, so it's
hmm
easier to play and get the embodiment. Like I've run, like an Amulet of Earth or like amulets before, just because it also triggers that. It's a free cost non-attack action to get your embodiment of lightnings, so that also makes Bramble Spark pretty good, but
yeah.
still
Uh,
not super high value.
yeah, not super high value. We're on the deep blue train for this pack. Um,
Yeah.
assuming let's say that this pack that we opened was open to the right of us, they would have taken the deep blue and probably passed us that in Twine Earth, which is not a bad second pick right after Terra Sunder. All things
Yeah.
considered. So I think we're in a pretty good spot. We're about to win this draft, and yeah, we're already winning because we're talking about drafts on a podcast. So, um, but yeah, I want to thank you for coming on. Draft is my favorite way to play Flesh and Blood, and anytime I get to have a battle bro on the podcast is a good day. Thank you for coming on. I'm going to ask for 2 things from you. I want
Sure.
you to plug everything you want to plug, social media, the podcast, the YouTube, anything people should be looking out for. And then I want you to talk about one of your favorite foods to close out the potty waddy here.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah. So, my buddy and I make a podcast, the Attack Action Podcast. Check us out. We have a sister podcast on YouTube that comes out just once a month called The Reaction Step. We do have a spoiler coming out on the 28th, for which we made a cinematic video. So come subscribe and check that out when it drops. And I guess that's pretty much it. Thanks for having me, Tommy. I wanted to say you do an excellent job because I can always have Taylor bail me out or vice versa, like
Yeah.
if I kind of stumble or don't know what to say or get derailed or, it's like easy to riff off of someone. You do a really good job of, you know, just talking to your audience very smoothly. So
Well, I
great
appreciate
job.
that. I appreciate that. You are an excellent guest. And yeah, plug your Twitter too, man. You're Battle Bro Isaac on Twitter,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And
Yep. At Battle Bro Isaac.
yeah, we'll say Battle Bro Taylor for your bro over there.
Totally.
And food. Let's talk about some food. What's your favorite dish? What's something that you've been really digging lately that you've been like eating?
So just making it home. I love that you talk about food at the end. Just to make it home, I love to make like chicken shawarma. I don't know why.
Ooh.
That's just really satisfying, and it's really easy to make too.
Oh yeah.
As far as like eating out, if like last meal, I would probably choose. Uh, Probably salmon nigiri.
Ooh, man.
Like fresh salmon nigiri. That's what I'd take.
Oh my God, that sounds pretty amazing right now.
Yeah, doesn't it?
Oh, so good. I actually probably when this podcast comes out on Thursday, we recorded this on Tuesday. I will be having my like last meal, like my like if I had to choose last meal. I'm going up on a trip to Portland, Maine.
Oh,
There's a place called Eventide Oyster Company. They have these brown butter lobster rolls that
nice.
I mean, if that was the last thing I ever ate, I'd be happy, and I'll be doing that come this Thursday. So while you guys are listening to this, so
Sounds like a good trip.
yeah, pretty pumped for it. So yeah, so thank you again. I'll plug my stuff. You can follow me on FreshBudsPod at twitter.com or at FreshBudsPod on Twitter. You can email the show freshbudspod at gmail.com. Join the Discord. We have a lot of fun there. We play games. We all razz each other. We have blue cheese dressing stickers that we send to each other all day long. I started a YouTube show in tandem of the podcast called The Fresh Five. You guys can check that out. That's where I talk about 5 things flesh and blood in 5 or so minutes. And that's been a lot of fun. I just had one come out today, which is Tuesday. And I talked about blues, different blue cards that I really enjoy. So check that out. And yeah, everybody have a great week. See you, Isaac.
Hey, thanks, man.